Have you ever sat there looking at unfinished work, plans still left blank, and asked yourself a very familiar question? Why don't I have motivation? You are not lazy. You are not lacking willpower. But something keeps making you start and then stop. You get a little excited and then fall back down again. I have met many people like that. And honestly, I used to be like that too. There was a time when I believed my problem was a lack of motivation. I thought I needed a push, a source of inspiration, something strong enough to pull me forward. But then I realized something very simple and also very hard to accept. You don't lack motivation. You're just doing it the wrong way. Imagine this. A man sits in his car, pressing the gas pedal continuously, but the car doesn't move. He starts to panic. He thinks, maybe this car isn't powerful enough. He blames the car, the engine, even himself for choosing wrong. But the problem is not the engine. The problem is he's in the wrong gear. Your life works the same way. You have energy. You have ability. You have enough to go much further than where you are now. But if you are operating your life the wrong way, then no matter how hard you try, you will still feel like you are standing still. I'm not here to give you more motivation. I'm not here to say things that make you feel better for a few minutes. I'm here to show you the things you are doing wrong. Because the moment you see that truth, you will no longer need to find motivation. You will start creating it. In this video, I will share with you the critical mistakes, the things most people misunderstand about motivation. And those very mistakes are quietly keeping them stuck in one place year after year. Not because they are weak, but because they have never been shown the right way. And by the end of this video, the final point might change the way you see your entire life. Mistake 1. You are waiting for motivation instead of creating it. There is an image I always remember. A farmer stands in the middle of a field, looking up at the gray sky and says, "I will start working when the sun comes out." It sounds reasonable, but if you understand life, you will know that is a dangerous mistake, because the season does not wait for your emotions. The land does not care whether you feel inspired or not. And if you wait until everything becomes easy, you will never plant the seeds. Your life works the same way. Many people believe they need to feel motivated before they start. They wait for a day when they wake up full of energy, a day when they truly feel like doing it. But I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, how long have you been waiting for that day? A week, a month, or many years? The problem is not that you lack motivation. The problem is that you are placing it in the wrong position. You think motivation is the starting point, but the truth is, it is the result. Imagine an old machine. You cannot stand there and demand it to run if you have never started it. But the strange thing is, when you turn the key, when you begin to move, the machine gradually warms up, and then it runs on its own. Humans are the same. You don't need motivation to start. You need to start to create motivation. I have met people who told me, "I will exercise when I have motivation." But the people who change their lives, they say something different. "I will exercise until motivation appears." Do you see the difference? One person waits for emotion to lead. The other uses action to create emotion. And that is the point that separates two completely different lives. I remember a friend, a small business owner, nothing special, not exceptionally talented, not lucky. But every day he worked even when he didn't want to. There were days he was tired. There were days he doubted himself, but he still did it. And the interesting thing is, after some time, he no longer had to force himself. He began to want to do it. That is not magic. That is a rule. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. If you continue to believe that you need inspiration before action, you will be stuck in an invisible loop forever. No motivation, no action, no results, even less motivation. But if you reverse it, action, a little progress, a little confidence, motivation appears. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying this is true. And sometimes the truth is not comfortable. I have learned that the most important moment in your day is not when you feel ready, but when you are not ready and you still do it. that is when you begin to change. And when you understand this mistake, you will no longer ask, "How do I get motivation?" You will ask a completely different question. Where will I start today? And when you start, everything else will begin to follow. But even when you understand this, even when you have stopped waiting for motivation, there is still a bigger mistake. A mistake that makes many people start strong, but then stop. Mistake 2, you start with inspiration instead of commitment. I have seen a scene repeat over and over in my life. A person enters the new year with bright eyes. They write down goals. They talk about a better version of themselves. They are full of energy. And then, a few weeks later, everything disappears. Not because they don't want to change. Not because they are not smart enough. But because they started with the most flawed thing: inspiration. Inspiration is like a spark of straw fire. It ignites very quickly, very beautifully, very impressively. But if you don't know how to sustain it, it fades just as quickly as it appeared. I want you to imagine something else. A coal furnace. No big flames, no explosion, but it burns steadily, persistently, and holds heat for a long time. Your life does not change because of sparks. It changes because of furnaces. And that furnace is commitment. I used to think that if I had enough inspiration, I could do anything. But life taught me a very simple lesson. You don't need to feel like doing something to do it. You only need to decide that you will do it, no matter what your emotions say. There is a man I know. He is not someone with high motivation. In fact, if you meet him in the morning, he seems very normal, not excited, not passionate. But every day he still does what needs to be done. He does not ask, "Do I feel like it today?" He asks, "What have I committed to today?" The difference is very small, but the results are completely different. A person who lives by inspiration depends on their internal weather. A good day, they do a lot. A bad day, they stop. A person who lives by commitment does not depend on the weather. Whether it's sunny or raining, they keep moving. I remember asking myself once, what makes a person continue when they no longer feel inspired? The answer is not motivation. The answer is honor with yourself. When you say you will do something, and you do it even when you don't want to, you begin to build something very rare in this world: trust in yourself. And when you have that, you no longer need inspiration, because you know you will do it no matter what. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, how many times have you started just because you felt it was time? And how many times have you stopped just because you no longer felt that way? That is not your fault. It is because you were never taught that. Inspiration is what starts, but commitment is what continues. If you build your life on inspiration, it will always be fragile. But if you build it on commitment, it will become solid over time. I have learned that the days you don't feel like doing it are the most important days, because that is when you stop relying on emotion. But even when you have stopped waiting for motivation, even when you have started living by commitment, there is still a very common mistake. A mistake that makes you do a lot, but still not go far. And that is where we must look directly at how you set your goals. Mistake 3, you set goals that are too big, but your system is too weak. I once met a young man. His eyes were full of ambition. He told me that within a few years, he would become rich. He would build a life that others would admire. Sounds familiar, right? I asked him a very simple question. What did you do today? He was silent. That was the moment I realized he didn't lack dreams. He just lacked a system to turn those dreams into reality. You see, life does not reward big goals. It rewards small actions repeated long enough. Imagine you want to build a tall house. You can draw a beautiful blueprint. You can tell everyone how tall it will be, how wide, how impressive. But if your foundation is weak, that house will never stand. Goals are the blueprint. Systems are the foundation. And many people only focus on the blueprint. They talk about the future. They imagine success. They set big numbers, big expectations, but they don't build the foundation. I used to be like that. I set goals that at that time I didn't yet have the discipline to achieve. And every time I failed, I thought I lacked motivation. But that wasn't the truth. I was just asking for myself, a version I had not yet become. You cannot live like an average person and expect extraordinary results. You have to build a system, a way of living aligned with what you want. I once knew someone. He didn't talk about becoming rich. He just did one very simple thing. Every day, he saved a small amount of money. Every day, he learned a little more. Every day, he did his job a little better, just a little. Nothing impressive, nothing that drew attention. But over time, his life began to change. Not because he had a big goal, but because he had a small, sustainable system. Do you see the difference? One person tries to jump very far in one leap. One person takes step after step, but never stops. And in the end, the slower one goes further. I want you to ask yourself one question. Are you living by goals or are you living by systems? Because if you only live by goals, you will always feel unmotivated. Why? Because the goal is far away. And when you don't see results immediately, you get discouraged. But if you live by systems, every day you have a small win. And those small wins create real motivation. I have learned that motivation does not come from seeing the destination. It comes from seeing yourself moving forward, even just a little. And that is what most people ignore. They want to feel successful before they build the habits of a successful person. But life does not work that way. You have to become that person day by day before you get those results. But even when you have a system, even when you start doing small things every day, there is still something more powerful than willpower. Something that, if you don't understand it, will pull you back to the starting point. And that is your environment. Mistake 4, you rely on willpower instead of designing your environment. I want you to imagine this. A person stands in a fast-flowing river, trying to swim upstream. He is strong, he is determined. He does not give up. But no matter how hard he tries, the current keeps pulling him back. Can you call him weak? No. He is just fighting a force stronger than himself without realizing it. Your life works the same way. You think the problem is willpower. You think if you are strong enough, disciplined enough, determined enough, you can do anything. But I want to tell you a truth that not many people like to hear. Willpower always has limits. You can force yourself for one day. You can try for a week. But if your environment does not support you, you will get tired and eventually you will stop. I used to be like that. I tried to read in a noisy room. I tried to focus in an environment that constantly pulled me toward easier things. And every time I failed, I thought I lacked motivation. But I didn't. I was just placing myself in a situation where doing the right thing was hard and doing the wrong thing was too easy. Think about this. If you put a piece of cake in front of you and say you won't eat it, that's not discipline. That's an unnecessary battle. But if you don't put the cake there in the first place, you don't have to fight. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. The successful people I know are not the ones with the strongest willpower. They are the ones who know how to design their lives. They place themselves in environments where the right actions become natural. They remove temptations before they become battles. They don't rely on feeling strong enough. They rely on making things easier to do right. I once knew someone. He wanted to wake up early, but every morning he kept hitting snooze. He thought he lacked discipline, until one day he did something very simple. He put his alarm clock on the other side of the room. The next morning when it rang, he had to get up. Just one small change, but it changed his behavior. Do you see? He didn't become more disciplined. He just changed his environment, and the environment changed him. I have learned that if you have to rely on willpower every day, you will burn out. But if you design your life the right way, you don't have to fight so much. You just need to live in a system that supports you. I want you to pause for a moment and look at your life. What surrounds you? Is it helping you move forward or pulling you back? You are not separate from your environment. You are a product of it. And when you change your environment, you will begin to change your behavior more naturally than you think. But even when you have created a better environment, even when you no longer have to fight so many temptations, there is still a very subtle mistake, a mistake in how you see yourself every day. And that is where we must face a harder question. Mistake 5. You evaluate yourself based on emotions instead of actions. I have had days when I woke up and didn't want to do anything. No energy, no interest, no sense of progress. And on those days, I told myself something very familiar. Today, I have no motivation. It sounds reasonable, but it is a dangerous statement. Because when you believe that your emotions define your value, you begin to judge your life based on things that constantly change. Today, you feel good. You think you are progressing. Tomorrow, you feel tired. You think you are falling behind. But life does not operate based on your emotions. It operates based on your actions. Imagine a farmer. He does not wake up every morning and ask, "Do I feel like going to the field today?" If he did, the crops would die. He goes to the field whether the weather is good or bad, whether he feels like it or not, because he understands one simple thing. Emotions do not feed him. Action do. You are the same. You may feel tired, but you can still act. You may not want to, but you can still move forward. And every time you do that, you send yourself a powerful message. I am not controlled by my emotions. I remember a time when I started tracking myself. Not tracking emotions, but tracking actions. At the end of the day, I didn't ask, how did I feel today? I asked, what did I do today? And the strange thing was, the more I focused on action, the better I felt. Not before, but after. That is what many people don't understand. They think they need to feel good to act. But in reality, you need to act to feel good. If you continue to evaluate yourself based on emotions, you will always feel lacking motivation, lacking energy, lacking confidence. But if you start evaluating yourself based on actions, you will see something different. You are moving forward, even if slowly. And that creates real confidence. Not the kind that comes from feeling capable, but the kind that comes from knowing you do what you say. I have learned that the days you feel bad but still work are the most valuable days, because that is when you stop being led by emotion and start leading yourself. I want you to try one thing. Tomorrow, don't ask whether you have motivation. Don't ask whether you feel ready. Just ask, what will I do no matter how I feel? And then do it. Just one thing. You will be surprised, not because you do more, but because you start trusting yourself more. But even when you have stopped depending on emotions, even when you have started acting more consistently, there is still a very subtle trap, a trap that makes you procrastinate without realizing it. And that is when we must talk about perfection. Mistake 6. You chase perfection so you never start. I used to think that I needed to be more ready, to understand more, to prepare more carefully, to make sure I would do it right from the very first time. It sounds reasonable. It sounds smart. But it is one of the most subtle lies you can tell yourself. Imagine you are standing in front of a long journey. You have a map, but it is not perfect. It is missing some details. It does not tell you exactly what will happen. And you say, I will start when I have a perfect map. I want you to stop and think carefully. How long will you wait? Because life will never give you a perfect map. It only gives you a direction and a chance to begin. I have met many people. They read one more book. They take one more course. They wait for a better time. They are not lazy. They do not lack motivation. They are just stuck in perfection. They want to do it right from the beginning, so they do nothing at all. I used to be like that. I delayed important decisions just because I thought I was not good enough, not ready enough, not informed enough, not perfect enough. But then I realized something very simple. You cannot learn to swim by standing on the shore. You have to get into the water. You have to accept that you will struggle. You will make mistakes. You will not be perfect. And in that process, you begin to improve. Perfection is not the starting point. It is the result of starting enough times. I remember a friend. He wanted to start a business. He spent months planning, researching the market, preparing everything, but he never started. Meanwhile, someone else did not have a perfect plan, did not have enough information, but he started. And over time, the one who started wrong improved. The one who never started kept thinking. Do you see the difference? Life does not reward the one who prepares the longest. It rewards the one who dares to move first. I have learned that perfection is often a beautiful cover, hiding fear inside. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. And instead of facing that fear, you give it a more elegant name. I just want to do it well. But the truth is, you don't need to do it well to start. You need to start to have a chance to do it well. Remember this, every day you delay waiting for perfection is a day you stay still. And life does not wait for you to be perfect. It keeps moving whether you start or not. I am not saying you should do things carelessly. I am saying you should start before you are perfect, because that is the only way to get closer to perfection. But even when you overcome this fear, even when you start taking action, there is still something many people don't understand. Something that makes them feel lost, even when they are on the right path. And that is the natural rhythm of motivation. Mistake 7. You don't understand the natural rhythm of motivation. I want you to observe something very simple. The tide does not stay still. It rises, then falls. The day does not last forever. The night doesn't either. Life moves in cycles. But humans expect everything to always go up. You want to feel motivated every day. You want to wake up every morning feeling strong. You want constant progress without interruption. But that is not how life works. And when you don't understand that, you start misunderstanding yourself. You have a few great days, you work effectively, you feel confident, you move forward. Then one day, you are tired. One day, you don't want to do anything. One day, everything slows down. And immediately you think, something is wrong with me. But nothing is wrong. You are just experiencing the other part of the cycle. I used to make this mistake. When I had motivation, I did a lot. I felt like I could change my whole life. But when motivation dropped, I started doubting. I thought I was falling behind. I thought I was losing something. But the truth was, I was just in a different phase. And when I understood this, everything changed. I no longer panicked when I lacked motivation. I no longer judged myself based on bad days. I started seeing life as a cycle. There are days you move fast. There are days you just maintain. And both matter. Imagine you are climbing a mountain. Some parts are flat, you move quickly. Some parts are steep, you must go slowly. Do you stop and say, I am failing because I am slower? No. You understand it is part of the journey. But in life, many people forget that. They want every day to be a fast climb day. And when it is not, they stop. I have learned that what matters is not that you always have motivation. It is that you do not stop when you don't have it. The people who go far are not the ones who always feel good. They are the ones who keep going even when they feel nothing special. I remember days when I worked with no inspiration at all, no excitement, no sense of achievement, just working. And those days were the quiet bricks that built my life. Not the days I felt amazing, but the days I kept going even when I felt nothing. Remember this, if you only act when you feel motivated, you will only move forward when things are easy. But if you act even when motivation is low, you will move forward even when life is not favorable. And that is a huge difference. You don't need a straight upward line. You need a line that continues. But even when you accept this rhythm, even when you are no longer afraid of low motivation days, there is something deeper, something that determines who you truly become, not just what you achieve. And that is where we must talk about who you are becoming. Mistake 8, you focus on results instead of the person you become. I once asked someone, what do you want in life? He answered quickly, I want to make a lot of money. A very common answer, very clear, very direct. But I asked one more question. What kind of person do you need to become to earn that money? He was silent. That is where the problem begins. You see, many people have goals, but very few people understand that those goals require a different version of themselves. You cannot live like an average person and expect extraordinary results. You have to become someone worthy of those results. Imagine you want a beautiful garden. You can focus on how many flowers there are. You can think about colors, images, the final result. But if you do not become a good gardener, that garden will not last. Results are what you see. Who you may be able to particular not. Results are field defended where you word. There's only the font of no one that you see that it wrote, but the verse are telling the front self. Imagine you want you see. Who you become is what creates them. I used to make this mistake. I only looked at results. I wanted success faster. I wanted more in less time. But I did not ask an important question. Am I becoming someone who can keep this? Because you can achieve something before you are truly ready for it. And when that happens, you lose it. I have seen this many times. Someone makes money quickly, but does not know how to manage it and loses everything. Someone achieves success, but lacks the discipline to maintain it and returns to the starting point. The problem is not motivation. The problem is they have not become the person who matches the result. Think about this. If you achieved everything you want tomorrow, could you keep it? Or would you lose it because you are not ready? That is why life does not just give you what you want. It requires you to become someone worthy of it. I have learned that success is not something you chase. It is something you attract through who you become. When you become more disciplined, you attract better results. When you become more reliable, you create bigger opportunities. When you become more patient, you build more sustainable things. Everything starts from within, but many people look outward. They see others succeed, and they want those results. But they do not see the years of self-change behind it. They do not see the habits, the choices, the sacrifices, and they think they just need enough motivation to achieve the same. But that is not true. Motivation may help you start, but who you become determines how far you go. I want you to try something. Don't ask, how do I get this? Ask, who do I need to become for this to be natural? Just by changing that question, you will change how you live every day, and over time, the results will come. But even when you start focusing on who you are becoming, even when you stop chasing results immediately, there is still a truth that very few people accept, a truth that makes many people quit even when they are on the right path. And that is the pace of life. Mistake 9. You want it fast while life requires slowness. I once planted a tree, not a big tree, just a small one starting from a seed. I remember the first day. I watered it. I looked at the soil and waited. Nothing happened. The second day I watered it again. I looked and waited. Still nothing. If you don't understand life, you will think you are doing something wrong. But if you do understand, you will know that things are happening that you cannot see. Roots are growing. The soil is changing. Life is beginning in silence. And if you become impatient, if you dig it up to check, you will destroy the very thing you are trying to build. Your life is the same. You work for a week, you want to see results. You try for a month, you want clear change. You stay consistent for a while, and you start asking, why am I not there yet? And that is when many people quit. Not because they are not capable, not because they lack motivation, but because they cannot tolerate slowness. I used to be like that. I wanted everything to happen faster. I wanted to see results immediately. I wanted to know that what I was doing was worth it. But life does not operate that way. It operates by its own rules. You cannot force a tree to grow faster by pulling it upward. You cannot demand results before the process is complete. But many people live as if they can. They start something, then they look around, they compare, they see others moving faster, and they lose belief. They think they are on the wrong path. But in reality, they are just in the phase where results have not appeared yet. I have learned that the most valuable things in life always take time. A strong skill takes time. A solid career takes time. A strong person takes time. And if you don't accept that, you will keep jumping from one thing to another, always searching for a faster way, but never staying long enough to see results. Ask yourself one question. Are you being consistent or are you being impatient? Because the two cannot coexist. The consistent person understands they are planting seeds. The impatient person wants to harvest right after planting. And that is why the consistent person eventually has a garden, while the impatient person only has patches of dug-up soil. I am not saying you should slow down your actions. I am saying you should accept the speed of results. You can work hard every day. You can move forward every day. But results will come in their own time. And if you are patient enough, you will begin to see small changes. Then those changes compound. And one day, you look back and realize everything has changed. Not in one night, but in many days you didn't notice. But even when you accept this slowness, even when you keep going without seeing results, there is still one final mistake, a mistake rooted deep in how you think about yourself. And that is what determines whether you continue or stop. Mistake 10, you think you lack motivation, so you quit. I once met someone. He told me something I never forgot. I'm not the type of person who has motivation. It sounds like a normal statement, but if you look deeper, it is not a statement. It is a sentence. Because when you believe you are a certain kind of person, you begin to act according to that belief unconsciously. If you believe you lack motivation, you will expect less from yourself. You will start slower. You will quit sooner. You will forgive yourself more easily. And each time that happens, that belief becomes stronger. It is a quiet loop, but a powerful one. Belief creates action. Action reinforces belief. And one day, you look at your life and say, that's just who I am. But the truth is, that is just who you have repeated long enough. I used to carry beliefs like that. I thought I was not disciplined. I thought I was not persistent. I thought I was not someone who could go far. And for a long time, I lived exactly like that. Not because I couldn't change, but because I didn't believe I could. Until I realized something very simple. You are not your thoughts. You are what you do repeatedly every day. And if that is true, then you can change by changing your actions. Not all at once. Not perfectly. Just start. I remember the moment I began to change how I saw myself. Not through a big affirmation, not through a powerful decision. Just I did one small thing and kept my word to myself. One day, then another day, and gradually, I no longer saw myself the same way. Not because I felt different, but because I had acted differently long enough. Understand this: if you believe you lack motivation, you will always find reasons to stop. But if you understand that motivation is not something you have, it is something you create, then you will stop waiting. You will start. And every time you start, no matter how small, no matter how imperfect, you are rewriting your story, not with words, but with actions. I don't know what you have believed about yourself all this time, but I do know one thing. You are not stuck because you are weak. You are stuck because you are believing the wrong thing. And the moment you change that belief, everything else will begin to change with it. You don't need a new life. You just need a new perspective. Pause for a moment and look back at everything we have covered. You don't lack motivation. You never did. You were just waiting for it instead of creating it. You started with inspiration instead of commitment. You set big goals but didn't build systems. You fought with willpower instead of changing your environment. You trusted emotions instead of actions. You waited for perfection so you never started. You didn't understand rhythm, so you doubted yourself. You chased results and forgot who you were becoming. You wanted speed while life requires time. And finally, you believed you lacked motivation, so you stopped. But now you see it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You don't need another video. You don't need more inspiration. You just need to start and do it the right way. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but the moment you leave here. If this resonated with you, leave a like. And if you want to continue this journey, subscribe to the Rohn Treasures channel so we can go further together. And I want to ask you one question. Will you keep waiting for motivation, or will you start creating it? I have spent my whole life learning one thing. Success is not something you pursue. It is something you attract by the person you become. I truly appreciate you staying until the end of this video.